Alright guys, the Nintendo Switch successor is going to be coming out next year, but the current Nintendo Switch is still going quite strong, surprisingly. Now I'm starting to see a lot of fake analysis come up from people who never really covered the Nintendo Switch in depth when it comes to sales, when it comes to first-party games, when it comes to what actually makes the system tick, and it leads to really bad analysis, it leads to really bad predictions, and people who are never right on the Nintendo Switch to begin with, all of a sudden started to repeat the cycle with the Nintendo Switch 2 and what's going on. But let's just first kind of back it up just a little bit and talk about the Nintendo Switch. 6+ year going into its 7th year. Sales are surprisingly still quite strong despite the age of the platform and relentless calls for new hardware among many core gamers. Now, for example, let's just talk about what happened in the Japanese retail sales recently. Famitsu tracked the Nintendo Switch at 77,780 units. For comparison, that was more than double any other platform, PlayStation, Xbox, no matter what, right? Nintendo Switch is still at the top of the charts there. Now, in the July NPD charts for the United States, we saw that the Nintendo Switch hit 2nd place right behind the PlayStation 5 and ahead of the Xbox series of systems. Software-wise, Nintendo is still pushing millions of units monthly. Games like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Splatoon 3, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Pikmin 4 are all still top sellers. It's kind of wild to see exactly how much Nintendo's doing first-party wise, where many times, especially in Japan, the charts are just dominated by Nintendo first-party software. Now, it's being reported by incredibly credible sources like Eurogamer and VGC that Nintendo will be releasing their next generation system in the second half of 2024. Now, Nintendo wants that smooth transition to the next generation, and you bet they are lining up a lot of exclusive content to push people to buy the next system. And here we are to the crux or the focus of what I'm talking about. Exclusive content has always been and will be for the foreseeable future Nintendo's biggest selling point, no matter how much some people who don't understand Nintendo's business try to tell you over social media. Nintendo systems sell based off of first and foremost first-party games. Now, don't get me wrong, big third-party games do help out greatly. Every system needs it. Titles like Monster Hunter Rise, Dragon Ball Z, Sonic, they all sell great on the Nintendo platforms and help push the system more. But most people buying a Nintendo system will need to see Nintendo bring the heat when it comes to games in order for the system to move units. So if you ever hear anybody try to claim that third party is what sells the Nintendo Switch or what sold the system, please tell them to stop retconning history and look up the numbers, look up the analytics. Most of the time, it comes from people who don't actually cover Nintendo's sales or Nintendo's games or even like Nintendo's games at all. They're just speaking from what they personally like, which is third-party games. They're not looking at the data. They're not looking at what's actually moving stuff. They're not looking at the Japanese charts. They're not looking at the US NPDs and seeing the top sales of Nintendo first-party games and not really many third-party games that are on those lists for selling Nintendo platforms. Most of those help sell Microsoft and Sony platforms. So we need to kind of get into what Nintendo's going to do to continue that momentum to bridge into the next generation of systems. So the rest of the year is pretty set. We got stuff like Super Mario Bros. Wonder that's coming out on October 20th. That's going to be a huge game for the Nintendo Switch. We've got Super Mario RPG coming out on November 17th. That's also going to be a huge game for the Nintendo Switch. Some big third-party games like Sonic Superstars, Sea of Stars, and Deca Police are also chipping in 2023, plus other games as well. Nintendo has a pretty set schedule, and I think that that schedule is going to be really important for them in the holiday season. You're going to see some type of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle probably. I mean, if it's not broke, why fix it? They've just been doing that every single year. And if you look at it, with 2024, they've got that massive system seller type of game, and that's going to be Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Now, for those who don't know about how incredibly popular 2D Mario games are, the more ambitious Super Mario Maker 2, for example, is getting outsold pretty much double or so by New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which is a port of the Wii U game. Now, the thing that I'm seeing quite a bit online from people is that some people think that Nintendo is going to just reset what they've done with the Nintendo Switch in terms of reselling the same games, and in terms of not being able to have backwards compatibility, in terms of doing exactly what they did with the Switch. But what people need to realize that Nintendo is very well aware that the same people who bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, they're completely content with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. In order for them to buy a new system, they're gonna have to have a new big Mario Kart game, a new big Super Smash Bros. Game, new 3D Mario. These things are all needed to push the systems. You can't sell the same thing over to casuals and expect them to be like, all right, here we go again. They're not gonna do it. They're just gonna play their Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So Nintendo introducing stuff like Super Mario Bros. Wonder, having Super Mario RPG come back, introducing that to a brand new audience, games that people haven't seen or played in quite some time, that is what's going to be key to continuing to sell Nintendo Switch systems and to sell Switch 2 systems or the next gen Switch whenever that does come. Now, we do probably have a Nintendo Direct coming out in September. So that's just something that Nintendo has always done. So far this year, they're right on track when it comes to their direct schedule. Had one early in the year, had one mid in the year. They're probably going to have one here in September, and it's probably going to be pretty good. We're going to get more information on the Princess Peach game. We're going to get more information on the Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon remaster. We'll probably get a few surprises here or there. Maybe we get Metroid Prime 2 and 3 double pack. Maybe they talk about Metroid Prime 4 a little bit. Maybe they announced that Fire Emblem 4 remake that's just been sitting there ready to go. So there's a number of things that could happen at this next Nintendo Direct. Honestly, Nintendo doesn't really have too many pressures or expectations. As everyone kind of knows, we're getting kind of towards the end. We've already got a lot of the major hits. Sometimes we've gotten them twice. Stuff like Splatoon 2, Splatoon 3, both on the same system. We also got stuff like Pokemon over and over on the same system. There's already been 2 Xenoblade games on the same system. There's been multiple Fire Emblem games, maybe get another one. So these are things that people are kind of like, okay, we're good. Anything that you guys release, it's fine. Everyone's kind of gearing up, getting ready for the next system. But it's going to be interesting to see exactly what they put out in September if they do have that big Nintendo Direct. And the big thing about that is transitioning to 2024. Like I talked about with the Princess Peach game, or like I talked about with the Luigi's Mansion remaster, if they have Metroid Prime 4, there's still quite a number of things they have to do to link to 2024, because this next system is rumored to be a second half of 2024 system. Well, that doesn't mean you don't want to sell Nintendo Switch systems, and you absolutely want to have momentum from one platform to another. You don't want to have those huge lulls like we've seen with Nintendo in the past, where they go from the Wii to the Wii U and it's just dead for like a year. There's not really anything else to play or even talk about. Same thing goes from the Wii U to Nintendo Switch, where it was dead for about half a year or so, more than half a year. They had some games in 2016 with Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Pokken Tournament, Twilight Princess HD, but then the second half of the year was pretty empty with an exception or two. So I do think that Nintendo wants to keep the momentum. They want to keep the platform going, and even after the next Nintendo Switch comes out, they still want to sell that standard Switch. I think they still probably got a bunch, millions of Tegra X1s that they've already purchased ready to go. So I don't think Nintendo's going to drop the system cold turkey. There's absolutely going to be some bleed over from the Nintendo Switch to the Nintendo Switch 2, and there's going to be some options and some availability for people to pick up a Switch Lite or a Switch version 2 or a Switch OLED and still have that alongside what you're doing new. And I think that once again comes back to what Mr. Furukawa had to say here about a smooth transition, and to me backwards compatibility would need to be a thing some way, shape or form. Whether you're doing it software wise, you put in that cartridge and it downloads it, whether you're doing an actual real backwards compatibility where it plays the game just like that, you do it the Microsoft way where it does some frame rate boosts or whatever the case is, or you do it like how Sony does it. There definitely needs to be that in there. And from what the reports say from Eurogamer and VGC, it's going to be a modular, portable, hybrid based system once again, and it's also going to take cartridge slots. Now, listen guys, you can never say for sure what Nintendo's going to do, but anytime that Nintendo has followed up on any portable or hybrid type system that's cartridge based, they've always done backwards compatibility. That goes all the way back to the Game Boy, to the Game Boy Color to the GBA, GBA to the Nintendo DS, DS to the 3DS. So we're talking multiple generations of this. So I would expect that Nintendo would keep with that tradition. One thing that I see a lot of people people bring up, especially people who don't follow Nintendo too much, or really more like in the Switch era, they'll say, oh, well, they did it with the Wii U to Nintendo Switch. Well, yeah, of course they didn't have that with the Wii U to Nintendo Switch, because they completely changed formats and graphics processors manufacturer. They went from the Power PC and having optical Blu-ray-like discs that were proprietary all the way to cartridges. You're not going to have backwards compatibility when you do something like that. You're going to have a clean break. So that's what they're going to do here. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch selling 130 million systems plus, and all those people having cartridges, they're not going to expect them to continuously rebuy that same thing, no matter how much people try to sit here on Twitter or social media or on videos and tell you, oh, people are dumb enough to do that. No, they're not. They're not going to continuously rebuy that same thing. We're going to see lowered sales. Heck, we even see lowered sales with games that are remastered and remade in comparison. Now, there are some outliers out there when it comes down to it. Don't get me wrong, but for popular systems, they're going to want to push new content over what they've done and just have that content to where people can still buy it on the new system. The Wii U isn't the best example of this, but we can go back to the GBA, we can go back to the DS, to the 3DS. You know, when it comes to the DS, people still bought DS games on the 3DS and played that backwards compatible. There were still big sellers like Pokemon and more that sold well into the Nintendo 3DS life, even with those DS cartridges. So I think Nintendo is very well aware of that, and I think they're gonna model things after what they did from the DS to the 3DS, or from the GBA to the DS when it comes to what they're trying to do with their games, making new content, having some other old school releases here and there, trying to bolster their online services with what they've done with the Nintendo Switch. There is a wide plethora of things that they're going to do, and I'm looking at it from an analytical perspective of what Nintendo's done in the past and what they're seeing right now, and shifting towards the future for Nintendo's content and what they're going to do. Now, we've heard rumors, quite a number of them, when it comes to what big games we can see at the launch of the Nintendo Switch. Now, me personally, I think that we're going to see big 3D Mario. I know, shocker, right? But there are some people that think that Nintendo's not going to do that. They're going to remaster or report Odyssey or something, which is just ridiculous. They're working on a big new 3D Mario game, so that's going to be one of the games to push the system. I think that Mario Kart, that's another thing that people are very contentious on. Some of it is trolling because we've had Mario Kart 8 for around 10 years now, or going on 10 years, but then other people are actually legitimately thinking that Nintendo's never gonna work on another new Mario Kart game because this one sold so well. No, that's not it, guys. This one sold so well because it's essentially a new game for 95% of the audience, because nobody bought a Wii U. That system only sold barely 14, not even 14 million units. So of course you're gonna re-release it. Nobody bought that game on the Wii U compared to what they're doing on the Switch. At least nobody bought the Wii U compared to what happened with the Nintendo Switch. So of course you're gonna have huge sales with that game. But once again, that's already been there, done that. The Mario Kart team absolutely has been cooking up something, and I expect to see it early in the Nintendo Switch 2's life. Now, we could see Donkey Kong, we could see more content. Sakurai's been teasing that he needs to go back to Smash Brothers. So there's a plethora of different franchises and games that Nintendo has access to, and that's going to be the thing that really drives the Nintendo Switch 2. Not a bunch of third-party games, not a bunch of content creators telling you that they need to have Elden Ring and all this other stuff on there for the system to be successful, because people were saying stuff like that with the Nintendo Switch, that they have to have all these big third-party games at the launch of the system or it's going to be in trouble, which people did say that. They literally did say that, said the Switch is going to fail because it does not have all these big third-party games. Meanwhile, forgetting that Nintendo Wii U launched with a bunch of big third-party games and failed. Nintendo Switch launched with Zelda and succeeded. So what they need is that big first-party game to get the ball rolling, and then the third-party developers kind of come sprinkled in here and there as the system picks up more steam. I see Nintendo doing the same thing, having that big 3D Mario, big Mario Kart at the beginning, like they had with the Nintendo Switch, and then sprinkling in other big games, maybe a new multiplayer IP, like they did with ARMS, maybe something else like that. And then you'll see third-party developers kind of come in here and there and provide some ports, maybe stuff like Tales of Arise, maybe Persona 3 Reload, games like that. So that's kind of how I see things playing out for the Nintendo Switch 2, and talking about the analytics and talking about what's going on with the current Nintendo Switch and how things are going to be handed off. But what are your thoughts on this when it comes to Nintendo Switch and what's happening and what we could see from the next platform? Let me know in the comment section below. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.